Myanmar is a South Asia state with over more than 5,000 years of history. It has been colonized by British from 1926 to 1946. However, the colonization was ended soon after World War II and continued by 60 years of governing of military government, which was also ended in 2015. According to UNHRC reports, Myanmar has over 50 million population. In Myanmar, the majority group is Burma. Also, like the rest of the world, there are several indigenous groups, including Karen, Rakhine, ethnic Chinese, Hmong, and Kachin. It is also notable that the Myanmar government recognized 135 distinct ethnic groups. The majority religion in Myanmar is Buddhism. However, due to the history and colonization, Myanmar also has Islamic and Christian population.
There are thousands of refugees entering Bangladesh every day. They cross the border of Myanmar, where the state military has launched a violent offensive against an ethnic minority group, the Rohingya. The UN reported that since August 2017, about 400,000 Rohingya men, women, and children have fled their homes in Myanmar's Rakhine state. Reports claim that the military has been killing and raping the Rohingya and has set their villages on fire. Satellite imagery showing burned villages confirms those reports. In 1962, Myanmar, then called Burma, was taken over by the military in a coup. They got rid of the country's constitution and created a military junta. Like many dictatorships, they promoted fierce nationalism based on the country's Buddhist identity. And when they needed a common enemy to help unite the population, the Rohingya were singled out as a threat. Tensions between the Burmese Buddhist population and the Rohingya go back to the Second World War, when each group supported opposing sides. The Rohingya sided with the British colonialists, who ruled the country, and the Buddhists mostly sided with the Japanese invaders, hoping they'd help end the British rule after the war. But even in modern Myanmar, the Rohingya minority continue to be an easy target. Although their lineage can be traced back to 15th century Burma, the government has been forcing them out, claiming they're illegal immigrants from Bangladesh. It started in 1978 after a massive crackdown called Operation Dragon King forced about 200,000 Rohingya to flee to Bangladesh. The military reportedly used violence and rape to drive them out. About 170,000 Rohingya reportedly returned to Burma. Then in 1982, the government passed the Citizenship Act, recognizing 135 ethnic groups. The Rohingya, with a population of about 1 million, were not on the list and became a stateless people. In 1991, Myanmar's military launched another campaign, literally called Operation Clean and Beautiful Nation. This time, about 250,000 Rohingya fled to Bangladesh. Tensions continued to build against the Rohingya in the 2000s. Violence broke out in 2012 when 4 Muslim men were accused of raping and killing a Buddhist woman in Rakhine. Buddhist nationalists backed by security forces attacked Muslim neighborhoods, burned homes, displacing tens of thousands of Rohingya again. Human Rights Watch deemed it an ethnic cleansing campaign. By this point, the Rohingya were persecuted, disenfranchised, and stateless.
This is my grandmother. She is 95 years old. Abaya, tu kialla Bangladesh ashode.
Dayachanda Godhura there, north with another, Gura finder, Fana did a Fana with another, and then Bishi Dudum, Mani Gorai, Furadi weather, Goraya, Furadi weather, the Obadi, Gura find high English, Kumadisi weather, or Mikamalani Gura find, Kapala for.
It's been a year since 700,000 Rohingya Muslims began streaming out of northern Rakhine state in Buddhist-majority Myanmar, turning this stretch of Bangladesh into the world's largest refugee camp. Today, the UN released a report saying the Rohingya were fleeing state-sponsored genocide, the most serious charge that the UN can make against a government. The report calls for Myanmar's top generals, including the commander-in-chief, to face prosecution. Myanmar has justified the crackdown as a response to attacks by Rohingya insurgents, and the government continues to deny all accusations of ethnic cleansing. Rosina says she was 16 when the soldiers came to her village. They burned homes, tortured and executed the men, and raped the women. She asked to cover her face with a veil and to use a different name. The military says women like Rosina invented their claims, but she lives with the evidence. Rosina fled to the camps with members of her family, relying on limited aid and surviving monsoons and disease outbreaks. Now a 17-year-old single mother, she faces an additional hardship. Her relatives have refused to accept her child. She's now just trying to get by until she can go back to her village in Myanmar. Here, refugees live in overcrowded conditions in an already overpopulated country, and Bangladesh is eager to find a long-term solution. In May, the UN secretly brokered a deal between Myanmar and Bangladesh to pave the way for the Rohingya to return. But the refugees weren't consulted. Mohibullah, who was a teacher before he fled Myanmar a year ago, says they want the military to be held to account before they can go back. He and his volunteers have been gathering data, images, and eyewitness testimonies in hopes of building a case for the International Criminal Court. How many cases do you know about of rape?
Rape a day, 1,834 cases.
According to Mohibullah's records, the village of Tulatoli, also known as Minji, suffered one of the worst massacres.
This place.
That's Tulatoli.
Yeah.
And this is where 850 killed, 127 raped. So you're saying it's very organized. The military says...
The commander knows.
You don't think they could have been acting by themselves?
Yeah. They cannot shoot one bullet without order.
How do you get any kind of legal justice for that? There's no way to have information about the people who perpetrated this crime.
We know that the people, BGP, Sector 4, Battalion 99, 20, 2000.
So you know which units?
Yeah, this is Unit 99. Now we have enough evidence. We already sent through the Bangladesh to the ICC.
What do you want from the ICC?
To take the action according to law.
Like Mohibullah, human rights organizations are also building a case for the ICC. But Myanmar isn't a signatory to the treaty that would put it under the jurisdiction of the ICC. With Myanmar refusing to acknowledge wrongdoing or the existence of the Rohingya ethnic group, the refugees' future remains uncertain. This is no man's land, a strip on the edge of Myanmar's border with Bangladesh. The 5,000 Rohingya living here would likely be the first to be returned, since they're within Myanmar's boundaries. They know that the government has said they can return, but they remain in limbo, unwilling to leave the country, but too fearful to go back to their villages. Do any of you guys speak English?
We think it's still not safe for us.
You're afraid of the military?
Yeah.
Why?
It's still not action against the perpetrator.
What kind of action?
According to law, international law, so many people have been killed. Nobody want to live this bad condition.
Rohingya families who fled Myanmar have been living in a cramped refugee camp in Bangladesh's Cox's Bazar district. Bangladesh at first was very welcoming of the refugees, but now is becoming too much to handle for the impoverished country. Samsu Alom, a refugee in the Cox's Bazar district, said, "In smaller groups, Rohingya are still fleeing to Bangladesh, We cannot understand how they have announced that repatriation of the Rohingya refugees will begin in November. It is very disappointing for us. Marzuki Darusman, chair of the UN fact-finding mission on Myanmar, said last week thousands of Rohingya were still fleeing Bangladesh and had faced discrimination. Those who remain continue to suffer the most severe restrictions and repression. Earlier this month, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, called on Bangladesh to halt this process of repatriation, saying, with an almost complete lack of accountability, indeed with ongoing violations, returning Rohingya refugees to Myanmar at this point effectively means throwing them back into the cycle of human rights violations that this community has been suffering for decades. Most recently, it seemed that over 2,000 refugees were all set to head home to Myanmar. However, people who found out that they were on this list went into hiding and are refusing to go back. One refugee said, "If we are forced to go, we will commit suicide by drinking poison. Otherwise, the government of Bangladesh will have to shoot us dead."